comes from Abraham. Ishmael is the ancestor of the Islamic people. Ishmael is the son of Abraham. His mother is Hagar, and she is a slave. So Abraham decided to sleep with Hagar to create him because at first his wife Sarah could not give birth, but then she ended up giving birth seriously. Sarah, his wife, gave birth to Isaac. Sarah wanted Hagar and Ishmael gone, so Abraham sent them away. Historically, the first son gets everything, and Sarah wanted Isaac to get everything, not Ishmael, because he's the son of a house slave and not her true son. So with Hagar and Ishmael there, that would not happen. So Abraham begrudgingly sent them away. Ishmael ended up becoming the ancestor of Islam. Islam nowadays is the second biggest religion, and it is getting bigger by the minute. The founder of Islam is the Prophet Muhammad. He was born in 570 CE in Mecca and was raised by his uncle Abu Talib because his father died before he was born. He is believed to be uneducated. This makes the words of Allah more credible. Muhammad is illiterate as well. So he started selling caravans with his uncle in Syria when he was about 25 years old, because that was the only work he could get. He became the apprentice of a very successful and wealthy businesswoman, and the two worked so well together she ended up wanting to marry him. So they ended up marrying each other. They had 6 kids, 4 girls and 2 boys, and 2 boys died in infancy. In his later years, he started to take an interest in praying and he started to hear voices in his head. In 610 CE, when he was 40 years old, he went to the cave in Mount Hira to pray. The angel Gabriel started to talk to him, but he did not realize it was the angel Gabriel. He received the revelation from the angel Gabriel. It consisted of just him telling Muhammad to go spread the word about Islam and stuff like God is one, and the day of judgment, which is like when God will decide your fate, whether you go to heaven or hell. He will decide you by your actions and what sins you have committed. Stuff like rejecting wealth. The Islamic people are told not to covet things. No cheating. A man should stay loyal to his wife, and the same with the wife staying loyal to her husband. And to not kill newborn girls. During this time period, girls were less important than boys, so some families would kill newborn girls because the shame it brought on with having a girl. And then soon he puts this plan into action and he starts preaching in Mecca. His teachings are recorded down in the Quran. His words are mainly poems, and since Muhammad was not educated, this makes the religion more credible.
After the first revelation, Muhammad spent 3 years in Fatra, which is an interval of time where he spent solely on praying. He started to preach in 613 CE. He had a rough time at the beginning. Most of the people ignored his religion, which was understandable. Think about this scenario. You're walking down the street and you see somebody spreading his own religion. Chances are you're going to ignore that guy, right? Anyway, he gained most of his support from his families, friends, and also failures in a society who had nowhere else to go. However, as he kept preaching, he eventually had quite an amount of followers. Enough followers to make the government start to worry. Many of you may ask, why is that? Here's the answer. First of all, Muhammad is preaching a monotheistic religion that worships the true God, Allah. Meanwhile, other people in Mecca worship polytheistic religions. Secondly, this is actually the most important reason. His teaching of rejecting wealth completely contradicts with the most important value in Mecca, which is economy. The government thinks that his religion could potentially sabotage their economic structure, so they wanted Muhammad out. Due to the pressure from the government, the tribe that Muhammad was from decided that they would no longer protect him. This put Muhammad into a dangerous predicament. He has no other choice but to move out of Mecca. In 622 CE, he moved to Medina, which is 280 miles away from his home. In fact, Medina invited him to be the chief arbitrator there. As a neutral outsider, he can settle many disputes occurring in Medina among the tribes, which would help to make the society a more peaceful place. This was another big turning point in his life, because he had much more followers than the amount he had back in Mecca. Not only was he the religious leader, he was also the leader in general. He established the Constitution of Medina, which was an alliance of 5 federations toward all tribes in Medina. In the Constitution, it stated the right of all citizens and specified the relationships between each communities. Now let's switch the theme here and talk about warfare. In 624 CE, 2 years after his immigration, he led a group of 300 warriors and raided a Meccan merchant caravan. Even though they were outnumbered around 3 to 1, they managed to win the battle. This was seen by all Muslims as the confirmation of faith, as Muhammad gave most of the credit to an invisible angel who he believed had helped him to win the fight. Over the next 5 years, several battles had broken off between the Muslims and the Meccans, including the Battle of Uhud and the Siege of Medina, where 10,000 Meccans surrounded the city of Medina, but failed to defeat the Muslims. This was a great loss for the Meccans, as they drained all their military powers dramatically, and was the direct reason of their defeat in 630, where Muhammad, in return, brought 10,000 Muslims and broke into Mecca in triumph with little bloodshed. After the defeat, Muhammad declared amnesty toward Meccans. This means that all of their past offenses were forgiven. The Meccans, grateful of his decision, converted to Muslims. He then destroyed the Meccans' idol, Kaaba. This is where it gets a little confusing. Isn't Kaaba the big black box in Islam that is considered a holy site? Turns out, Kaaba existed before Muhammad was even born. Kaaba was the holy site for many Bedouin tribes. Once a lunar year, the tribes would make a pilgrimage to Mecca and worship their own god, Allah. Back to the life of Muhammad. After returning to Mecca, Muhammad continued his conquest in Arabia in his last 2 years of life and had unified the Arabian Peninsula to a great extent under Islam. In 632, a few months before his death, he completed the Hajj. For those that don't know, Hajj is the pilgrimage to Mecca. Every Muslim needs to do it once in a lifetime, and it is believed that God will forgive all of their sins when they complete the journey. A few months after the pilgrimage, Muhammad fell sick and died on June 8, 632 CE. To conclude, Muhammad can arguably be considered as the most influential person on earth throughout history. He was an accomplished military leader who set a tone and stride for the great Muslim empire. More importantly, he was the founder of Islam, which now has around 2 billion followers and is the fastest growing religion around the globe.